Yeah, really. Well, these are part of these, just like you do. My younger sister, my baby sister.
Windows are broken. Roofs.
They're moving together.
Oh, on Traverse. Yeah, on Traverse. That's a question. You know, if they went out.
That's how it's presented.
I'll have to look at it.
It's a blessing to live in a place where you actually.
I don't know if they have. Right, so maybe they don't need that size. Do they, like where the tennis court? They've got.
This is like out by Brown Culvert.
Oh, okay.
I think they keep it in.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of great.
Kind of shocked.
It's a big. So not about it.
Rock and roll. All right, everybody, it's 7 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. We'll start out with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Val Dyka.
I'm here.
John Leo.
Here.
Nancy Rondell.
Here.
John Cups is absent, and Matt O'Gara. We do have a forum.
Excellent. All right. Time for citizens' comment.
I'm just gonna get it right out of the way.
Fine.
My name is Bill Brown, 251 East Main Street. I'm here tonight not representing myself as Citizen Brown, but as president of the Friendship Center of Harbor Springs. And for those that do not know, and perhaps there's more than one or two, we are a nonprofit 501c3 established in 1975. We are independent of all other friendship centers in the area, and we derive no other income other than donations and a small amount of money from the senior millage from the county. Our mission is to enrich the quality of life and support independence and vitality for all area older adults. And I read it every time rather than trying to memorize it so that I don't miss anything. My tonight's request to the council and to the city is to by proclamation, to support the World Senior Day, which is August the 21st. It has been since 1988. It was originally written into law by then President Ronald Reagan. And it is for all that they have achieved throughout their lives and for all that they continue to do. We owe our gratitude and sincere greetings to our senior citizens. We can show our gratitude and appreciation better by making sure our communities are good places, age and maturity places where older people can participate as much as possible and find the encouragement, acceptance, support, and services they need to continue living a life of independence and dignity. And I assure you, with our aging population here, I am a part of that, so I can speak legitimately. We are 61 and a half on average and older. And I can speak for myself, but I know there are other people who probably say the same thing. We are neither invisible, nor are we out of the loop, I guess is a good way of saying it. There are enough of us that we have a voice to be heard, and we wish that voice to be heard. How the city would acknowledge the fact that it's Senior Day would be up to the city and the council, but any sort of acknowledgement would be greatly appreciated. And that's my little spiel. Thank you.
Do you have a sample resolution?
Pardon?
Do you have a sample resolution or proclamation?
I do not have a sample. I chose not to do that. I'm not gonna, I'd let council do that. He's much better at it than I am.
All right, I'm sure we can put something together for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You wanna go? Let you go first. Ladies first.
I'm Linda Rockwitz, 519 East 3rd Street, and I'm tickled to death to be able to come and report or let you know what's going on with the Committee to Save Our Services. That's a committee to get the override passed in August. We are at work. We have organized our messages, and we've organized our letters to the editor so that we have a letter on a different topic going in each week from now until the election. The Chamber of Commerce has generally offered to put one of our facts or blurbs or whatever in its newsletter once a week. And so we hope to get out as many different facts and different sides of information that we've heard that we think people need to have in that amount of time. We've got our yard signs all designed, ready to be ordered. They will go up around June 24th, just after the absentee ballots go out. We are doing door hangers. This isn't one, but a door hanger for all of the registered voters in the city with the information, the facts. And most importantly, we are all out there recruiting yes votes. So, and we're hoping of this word of mouth, this proposal, this millage proposal is a reasonable way to save our services.
Thank you. Okay.
You say Jeff?
You want to-
On a lighter note, my son, Dan and Al Dyka enjoy the same birthday. Maybe not the same year, but the same day. May 19th, so Thursday. So happy birthday, Al. It's now on the record.
We'll have a cake at the planning commission.
Be stale before you're done with it.
Okay, anyone else for public comment? No? Okay, thanks. Moving on to the consent agenda. Issues on our
Looks
end?
good to me. I'll make a motion to approve it.
So the only thing I see, we don't have the closed session.
Oh, yeah, they're not on the agenda, but they are included in your packet, the closed session minutes.
But is approval part of the consent?
We can add it.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point, yeah.
And comments from the gallery?
I have a second, I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Don Leo,
Yes.
Nancy Rondell,
Yes.
Matt O'Gara,
Yes.
and Al Dika.
Yes.
Motion carried.
The Culvert.
Okay, you probably have heard by now, Mdot is going to replace a culvert on M119 just east of the city limits. And normally that wouldn't concern us, but however, the culvert is going across M119, leading into parcel of property that the city owns. So Mdot has a few things that they need to do on that parcel. I have Matt Rodolsky, he's an operations engineer with Mdot. He's gonna just talk a little bit about what they're doing. But before I hand it over to him, just a really brief overview of what they're really looking for. One is a permanent easement on, or buy some property from the city on part of that city-owned property, so they can actually install the culvert and control the culvert. They also need an easement for a work area where they're gonna perform the work, about half an acre. This would also require about a half an acre of trees to be removed. And they're also gonna cause, it's not gonna be a detour, but there's gonna be a different traffic pattern. For example, there's not gonna be, they'll be prevent left turning from Lake Street onto M119. It'll be a one-lane closure for part of the way. So there's a few different elements of this work that they're gonna be doing probably next year, next spring. So I think council, I wanted Matt to, Mdot to update council on the project and see if there's any concerns from the public or council, and what issues we may have and how we potentially could, or Mdot could potentially address some of those. I outlined those a little more in detail in my memo. Lucas attended a couple of the Mdot meetings and also had his own concerns, and part of them are expressed here, especially with the traffic patterns and one lane and the left turn. So Matt, I don't know if you're able to speak. Are you off mute?
Yep, I'm off mute now. Good evening, everybody. So, I have the PowerPoint presentation from when we did it for the public meeting a couple weeks ago. I can show that, or if you want me just to talk about the project, however you want me to proceed, I can do that.
You want to see a PowerPoint?
How long is it?
How long is the PowerPoint?
It's about 7 or 8 slides. It just shows some pictures, and how about I'll just I'll put up the area there so you can see
Yeah.
what it looks like. And I can't show it. Says the host says disabled the screen sharing.
All right, you
So,
should be able to do it now.
okay. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, can everybody see my screen for the proposed work?
No.
Make it a little bit bigger. So can you see my screen with the proposed work?
No.
Not yet.
Okay. Let's see here. Back to the Zoom. Yeah, I'm not too sure why it's not working here.
Well, I do have a general map that I included in my packet that if you can see on my screen,
Okay,
if you want.
let me try one other thing here. Whoops. Okay, that'll work. So, yeah, Mdot, we're looking to do this project next spring. What it is, we're replacing the culvert underneath on 119. That's the little yellow line that you see there. And the parcel that we're affecting there is at 100-003. And we understand that's all the city of Harbor Springs property. So what we're planning to do is to build that culvert under M119, and that should be pretty quick. Shouldn't be a whole lot of affecting that crossing there. We will need to move the Little Traverse Trail to the north a little bit temporarily, and then we'll be moving it back. The bulk of the work is down the bluff, and that includes about a half acre, half acre of clearing. And then, so we would need a temporary grading permit from the city to do that work. And then we're going to need a permanent easement for the culvert that is going down the bluff. And it'll be kind of like a U-shaped channel going down, and it'll be covered with a mesh, like a steel mesh, so that people and kids and other things can't get into it, but yet it provides some air and allows for the water to go down the slope. The other part of this project is the stabilization of the slope. As most of you might be aware, that there is some erosion there, and you can kind of see in the shoulder there of M119 where we've been able to do some patching in that area to hold it together. But if you were to get down and to look up, and you can see there's a lot of erosion happening. So we want to be able to stabilize that slope. What the plan is we're going to cut down the trees, but we're going to leave the stumps in there to maintain the grip, or to maintain that slope there so we don't get any more erosion. In addition, we're going to be then putting material on top to flatten that slope out a bit, and we'll be putting in some slope stabilization and some other measures to help stabilize the slope as much as we can, because we don't want anything to happen to M119, and so we want to make sure that's all nice and stable when we're done. And we do this by benching in the slope, and then once we bench it all in, get it compacted, we add the additional material on top, and then the slope restoration. And we anchor this in with a mulch blanket, and to make sure that this is all stable, and so heavy rains or any type of rain, long period of rain, the slope doesn't wash out on us in the end, until the grass can grow. So I'm trying to think here. So we've had our plan review meeting. We're about 80% done. And one of our last few things that we need to do is to make sure we need to get environmental sign off. And once we get that, we can send our paperwork over to our real estate division, who then will be contacting the city of Harbor Springs for the permanent easement and then the temporary grading easement that we will need in this area here. So I guess if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
So when the application is made to the city, there'll be a map that will show the specific areas that you're asking for both the temporary and the permanent easement.
That is correct.
We don't have that today.
I have it today. I can show you. I guess I'm having some issues showing the slides here. I'm not too sure why. I can try again here.
It would seem important to actually see what we're agreeing to before we.
Yeah, so
agree to
this
it.
is. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So all the green area here is the tree clearing area. And then this concrete spillway with the grate covers, the blue here, and then a little bit of riprap here at the bottom to slow the water down. Let's see here. And then here's the actual culvert that we're going to be replacing underneath M119. I'm going to go up here just to give you a look of what it looks like from down below. As you can see, the little free fall water of what's right here. And you see all this the timber here that is kind of collapsed over time. There's this timber, I guess if you want to say earth dam here, and you can see this is all cracking and falling apart. Move this over here. As you can see here, we have tried in the past to put in a culvert to take all this water down, but just the slope is too steep, and therefore that fell off. So we're doing some, so this is why we're out here trying to fix it. It's hard to see here, but there's a lot of this rock that's missing in the slope and in the bank, and you can tell over time that maintenance personnel have been in there to try to fix it. But this is something that's a little bit beyond our maintenance folks, and that's why we're getting a contractor in there to fix it right. Just seeing if anything else important. And here's what you guys were talking about earlier in the meeting there. Here's the project location. We're gonna have temporary signals on either side. And then at Lake Street, what we're asking for is to be able to put in a right turn only sign. So traffic coming up here will only be able to turn right. And the reason why I want to do this is because of the temporary signal and our construction zone and everything. We need some little bit of room to work. And so therefore, with the temporary signals being right there at this intersection, it would be pretty much impossible for vehicles to turn left out onto here. So I was talking with Lucas and Victor about this, and we're looking at potentially at Hoyt Street, or we cannot even, we're going to sign this ahead of time so motorists know that they cannot make a left here. And sometimes the best is to leave it for the locals and everybody else to find their way around this intersection here, which might be Hoyt Street or following M119. Yeah, I don't have it on here, but following M119 towards the west a little bit and then come through this area.
And one of the concerns that I expressed to Matt was likeliness that most people will be using Hoyt Street, and there'd be probably more of a traffic backup there, so. And I talked a little bit, Lucas, and maybe Kyle can confirm, but just a little worry about more people turning left onto M119 from Hoyt Street because of the visibility when you're turning left. I don't know if you have more out of that,
That's
Kyle.
the first I heard of it.
Okay,
My concern about everybody using Hoy Street is that's where our boats come to.
Oh, even a second.
Yes.
That's pretty high traffic route, real high traffic.
How long of a period are we talking about?
Yeah, how long is the
Having
project
this-
gonna take?
Yeah,
Matt, do you have an answer for that? How long the project might take? I know you said it would be likely a May project.
What we're trying to do, we're gonna get started early. We do have environmental tree restrictions on this project. So we have to have all the trees removed by May 31st. So we'll be getting, oh wait, I'm sorry, March 31st. And then we'll be able to start the project. And our goal is to have most of the job done by Memorial Day weekend. The rest of the work, will probably be a little bit of striping, restriping the road. We're only removing 100 feet of M119, and then there'll be a little bit of cleanup work. Trying to think what else. And just tying down the slope with just a little extra emphasis. So right now we're looking at probably, it'll be late or Memorial Day weekend.
It'll be before real heavy traffic starts up.
Yep.
And the
We
areas,
understand
and
that.
again, the areas for the easements?
That is right here. So the temporary grading,
Okay.
got here about, I want to say about 30,000 square feet, which is probably about half an acre. And then you got a permanent acquisition here that we're looking for. It's about 3,600 feet. So this small area here that you see highlighted.
Are you gonna be flooding the weekly commencing
I was
properties
just,
and there's tennis courts?
Yeah.
The way it kind of looks like you might right now.
Empty.
And I'm wondering if you might divert that, the end of that thing, the downhill end to the west a little bit and into the swamplands that are here by the deer park, and Weekly has, I think, a strip in there too. The city has a strip, and then it's the West Weekly Conservancy piece, which seems to me it's a swampland anyway. It'd be better to divert that water rather than put it in the backyards. Those houses are back pretty deep, right in that area.
So what we will be doing is this culvert here will be placed to the west of the existing culvert, maybe by about 5 to 10 feet at most. So ultimately, this water is being redirected. We did some surveys down here. There is marshland and swampland down here at the bottom. So we're not putting in any more water than what's coming out right now. You should not see a difference in the amount of water coming down and into the swampland that's right down in here. And then the water will be able to follow its natural course. I believe it comes in behind the tennis courts and then crosses into I was at is it Weequatonsin down in here, down to the south? I'm not sure what the village or the name of the little subdivision is down here. Hello? Can anybody hear me?
Just a question of compensation.
But a permanent easement gives them what they need,
Yes.
and we retain ownership.
I'm sorry there. I must have lost you guys there for a little bit, but I'm back.
It was our connection, Matt. So we had a question about, if this was gonna be a permanent easement or a acquisition, that's where we lost you there. So we were talking about whether you guys are actually, Mdot's actually gonna wanna purchase a property, that part
Yes.
for, looking for, okay.
We do need to purchase this property here that's highlighted. The box here is just the temporary grading so that a machinery can get in here and clear the trees. But the only part that we need is, what we're asking for is this shaded area here in pink or red.
So then part of the agreement would be the process for the sale?
Well, I think there's, a primary question is how much are they willing to pay?
Right.
And
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure when that will be known. Perhaps Matt could address that.
So what happens is our real estate agents between our region office and Lansing office, they'll go to the record of deeds in the county there, make sure they get the right property. It's going to be all officially surveyed out. And then what they will do is offer you a money based on the fair market value. And that's the way, the business happens.
Okay.
What happens with the wood that, like, do they clear it out, the trees they take?
So yeah, that was a question. Matt actually emailed me last week to talk about what the options are for the timber. And Matt, if I'm correct in summarizing what you had told me, was that the contractor, because you're using federal money, the contractor will not haul away the timber from the site. So that means the city has to decide, do we want to let the public take the wood? Do we want to sell the wood on our own or move the wood out ourselves? Is that correct, Matt?
Little bit of clarification. So the contractor can remove all of the timber, and then it goes to the contractor. Or what we can do is, by law, we can what we do is we clear out the timber and leave it at the right-of-way line, which is up here. Or we could put it down here at the bottom of the temporary, or of the permanent right of way, cut it up into sections so that it, and the city can do, whatever they would like with it. So it's either has to stay on site. We just can't have the contractor haul it to, some person's house or something like that. It's either got to stay on site or or it becomes a property of the contractor and they haul it away. Now, after that, outside of the contract, if you guys want to work something out with the contractor, that's fine, but we don't want to know about it. But these are just the legal guidelines that we need to follow.
I'll leave it, I would think.
Chief Knight, do you think there's a need for some sort of traffic signal at Hoyt Street and State? It's gonna be a 2-month.
I would look at that based on the time of year. I don't think so.
You think about it?
Yes.
All right, Matt, we'll probably get back to you about that Hoyt and M119 intersection after the police chief takes some time to look at it some more.
Maybe I could meet with their engineer or something.
Yeah, we'll be happy to do that.
Matt, would you take that question from the public?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
Hi, Bill Mulder, 372 West Summit Street. Hello, Matt, on the phone. I'm a resident here. And this sounds like an important project. We'd be in a world of trouble if M119 collapsed or something and we were cut off. But you know, I was just thinking, we have a couple pieces of business with Mdot. You know, this might be a really good time to, while we're approving these easements and these requests, maybe Mdot could approve the use, the pedestrian use of the underpass. And our spillway. It's something
I like that.
we've gotten a lot of data on now. The case looks superb for it. And, you know, maybe Matt could help us. I don't know, Matt, if you're in that department, but, you know, if we were doing both these two pieces of business at once, we might be able to speed things up.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm not involved in that department there. That's out of our hydraulics unit, and I can mention this to them and to see what they say, but yeah, I don't have the authority to, I guess, to make that request like you're asking, but I will mention it to them.
Thanks.
So what is it that you're looking for today?
This was just to get any feedback
just
from council
information.
before, because update you that they're gonna be coming for a request for to purchase some property and get an easement, and I wanted you to be well aware of what's going on before they actually make that official request, so you can process it. And then give us staff, if you think of any feedback that you want us to reach out to MDOT about. But it's also a way for the public who's in attendance to
Right.
ask any questions in case they missed the MDOT's public meeting the other week.
Hi, Karen Terrell Donnelly, 644 Ann Street. I'm here really on behalf of the Tree Advisory Board. When I read the plan today and I saw the number of trees that are going to have to be removed, it's kind of contrary to our long-range plan of staying the Tree City USA. So I'd really like to see if there's any way that a plan could be created to either replace the trees or save whatever trees can be saved. Probably have to get rid of them now, but then replace them. I just hate to see that whole void of the urban forest that you see when you come into the city of Harbor Springs. Thank you.
It'd be
Yeah.
nice to.
It's just a FYI, which I kind of talked to Karen about this. The tree board's technical purview is within the city limits, and this is outside the city limits, but the point is well taken. There's no difference in property in the city or out the city when we own it. You know, we should take the same approach to it. So I don't know if Matt has any thoughts about it, about the tree replacement. I know we talked just briefly about whether the trees are needed to stabilize the bluff, and that's why Matt talked about keeping the stumps there, the trunks there. But Matt, do you have any thoughts about what MDOT could do for tree replacement?
At this time, we do not plan to replace the trees. And as we spoke with, I believe it was with you, Lucas, and Victor, I understand that this was outside of the city limits. That this was outside the city limits, so we would not have to replace these trees. We also looked at it as this was a way to be able to see the bay and enjoy the views of the lake. I understand what the citizen is saying. I don't know. I mean, I guess, one person might look at it one way and one person might look at it another way. At our public meeting, there wasn't really, everybody seemed to be okay with that, with our plan. So we have not put trees into this project here to replace them.
Just a clarification, Matt, when I told you that, I was referring to the city has a specific tree ordinance and policy that wouldn't apply to, we can't apply city ordinances to outside city property. So is what I meant, that you wouldn't have to follow our city policy because it's not within the city limits. But if, council had a request, I mean, I'm sure they'll make it. Of course, though, that'd be part of the discussions.
So that maybe some trees, I don't think they would have to replant the whole thing, but at least up at the road level, it would be nice to put something back. Yeah.
Kathy Leo, 510 West Summit. I'm just curious, how tall are the stumps that are going to be left?
They will be cut flush to the ground.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Before you, before you get final approval, it has to be an environmental survey, is that correct? Anybody?
Yes,
And-
that's correct, Matt, right? You guys also need an environmental survey before final approval. That's the last thing you're waiting for?
We're waiting for the environmental sign off. And then we can move forward with the survey of the property to verify that, this is exactly what we're purchasing and be able to show you guys exactly where the boundaries are. But what you see on the screen right now is pretty much, what we need. And then when they go to file it with the county or with the deeds, they'll have the exact language on it. Of what we are actually purchasing and what we'll be needing for the grading permit or grading easement, I'm sorry.
So environmentally, if they say you have to replant, you'd have to replant.
We've already talked to our environmental specialists and they have indicated that we don't need to replace the trees.
Is that if you own the land? Is it a different answer if it's an easement?
I guess if we own the area that we're gonna own, we wouldn't be able to put the trees in anyways because of the concrete culvert that we're putting in there. The area outside it and the temporary grading easement, yes, trees could be put there.
Imagine, Jim, I don't know, but that's something, when they approach us, we could talk about if that's something council wants.
That would be the time, I think, to
Could be a
do that.
condition.
Meanwhile, now that we're educated on this, we can have further discussions, and I think the tree board could certainly add value in options that we might consider for them.
I mean, this is something definitely we can discuss. And,
Should.
we prefer to be able to kind of discuss that now, or not now, but within the next week or two, before we get into negotiations with the right of way. And that way we can keep things moving forward quickly with the project.
Well, so Matt, what I think you're hearing generally right now is from council, because they were nodding their heads, and some from the public, is that some sort of tree replacement, at least, or tree plantings after they're cleared, and the temporary easement right away would be wanted. So if maybe you and I can connect afterwards.
Okay.
Talk about.
And the time to do it would be while all this is going on.
We know how
Right.
many trees are coming out.
Half an acre. We don't know the precise number, half an acre.
Fair amount.
Kathy Macho, 560 Sergeant Street. Is it definite what the road situation is going to be while this is going on? And I didn't understand how long a period this is going to be, that the traffic's going to be diverted. I mean, is M119 closed?
No,
No.
it'll be,
Okay.
there'll be temporary traffic signals, portable traffic signals on either side of the work that we're doing here, either side of the culverts. And so it'll be just like a, where there'll be one lane of traffic, but eastbound M119 will go and then stop, and then westbound M119 would go. The duration of it will probably get started. So we probably be the end of March, and then we got April and May is when we're going to have substantial completion, because that's when Memorial Weekend is. We may need a little bit of lane closures after Memorial Weekend, but we're determining that. We're trying to put in, so now that we know all the information and our engineers are working to figure out the duration for each task that's going to take place. And then what we do is we set the progress clause saying that the contractor has to, get it done within a certain amount of time. And that's based on, our duration calculations for each task that's involved in this culvert. So, we will be happy to let you guys know exactly for sure what's going to be happening here, soon. But right now, based on our estimate, is we're thinking here probably around Memorial Day weekend, we're going to have this substantially done.
I'm concerned about the timing too of the boats that are gonna be going back and forth down Hoyt, and I'm not sure how this is gonna affect that, but certainly April and May are big times for all of those.
Because Irishes a lot of times don't come to Hoyt, they go all the way around and come down Lake and turn right, which this one allow. I'll look at tomorrow.
Well, we don't have too many choices there.
Don't go.
The road. Simple. Okay, there. We will talk more.
All right, thank you, Matt. I'll be in touch, and so will the police chief. Will be in touch soon.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you later, Lucas. So have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, Matt. Are you ready to move on? Okay. All right, so the boardwalk replacement funding plan. Parks and Rec Board recommended that the city prepare a fundraising plan. Now that summer is around the corner. We've also heard back from the EDA, or the Department of Commerce, that we did not receive the EDA grant. It's disappointing, but it's not surprising. Many of the municipalities had more pressing needs and less means to address those needs. Another potential reason for denial is that they were looking at projects that increased jobs and boosted economy, and this one necessarily didn't increase jobs. We've also applied, as I mentioned before, federal congressional monies, and we're also recommending applying for an MEDC state grant. We might expect the same result with that MEDC grant, but we already have all the materials that we applied for the federal grant. So all we need to do is really just compile those and submit it online. So that said, disappointing news, but we still have, I think, a community here that's willing and ready to donate for this boardwalk to be up and running again. So even if we did receive grant money, it wouldn't cover the entire cost of the boardwalk. So we knew we'd probably have to fundraise some amount of money anyway. So I'm recommending that we start fundraising for replacement of the western section first. With a hopeful 2023 construction. That all depends on how much money we raise and when contractors are available. I'm pretty hopeful it could happen in 2023. We'll City staff will distribute some of the responsibilities for soliciting and tracking the funds. There's a local nonprofit that will also be fundraising for the boardwalk. We appreciate their fundraising efforts and will accept donations from them and others. Our system, we can't take online donations. We can take check and cash. So if the nonprofit can take, online donations and people want to donate there, that's great. We just don't want to have set up that system and then there's charges with that system. And it's just, for us, checks and cash would be best. I also suggest that we start this for about 4 months. We do this fundraising efforts throughout the summer and reconvene in September or earlier if we're closer to our fundraising goal. But at the end of September, see where we're at with the funds. And at that point, decide on whether or not, we feel like we're comfortable enough to bid out the project, that we have enough or close enough money to go forward. Alternatively, if we have more money, we could also start saving up for the eastern section. What I don't want to do is say we're going to replace the whole thing because that's a lot more money to fundraise for than delay that project. Well, it might save us some money if we do the whole project at once. So it's not an easy decision, but it's going to take longer to fundraise that money. So it depends on whether council wants to see a sooner replacement of at least part of the boardwalk so people can get up and down, or want to see a slightly less expensive but prolonged fundraising effort project. But on a side note, council had asked last time just to check to see if we could open the viewing platform. I asked Lucas again to do a more detailed assessment and reassess the viewing platform, and he went underneath and took a bunch of pictures. I shared those in the packet. And half the wooden planks are not even balancing on the concrete. The concrete's crumbling. It just would be I don't think we'd be doing our due diligence by allowing people to use that. It's pretty. You see some of this is just hanging on by threads. Some of these and the concrete's crumbling. It's not good. So I'm not going to recommend opening the boardwalk viewing platform. So that's where we're at. So I would entertain council discussion and talk about how you guys want to proceed with the fundraising plan, if that's a sound plan to you, or you want to look at different options. Last time, several months ago, someone had mentioned council member had mentioned just doing stairs or steps to the top, and that we would relook at that if we didn't get a grant. But I'm confident we can raise the money from the community to get between $500,000 and $600,000 to rebuild at least the western section.
It seems like during the fundraising that's going to be happening, we should keep looking for possible grant money, that kind of thing. Should always be looking for that.
Yep.
And like Victor said, if we end up with enough money to do the whole thing, that's an upside.
Yeah.
For the congressional, federal congressional money, which again, it's very competitive, I doubt we'd get it, but even if we do, I included the eastern part in there as well. So I included a $1 million price tag for that. So we could also, and if we get grant money, any of the fund, let's say we do get the MEDC grant money, any money that we do fundraise up above beyond what it costs to replace the western section, we can use that to fix the eastern section at a later date. So that's why I would say we should fundraise saying we're replacing the boardwalk, potentially in phases. One, we're gonna do the western half first, and then we can do the eastern half second.
I think the pitch that we make should include both sections, talking about both sections. Because if we're out funding, raising fund, looking for funds, they should understand the complete scope, because you never know.
Right.
I agree.
It might be, my God, it's, we want to do it, let's do the whole thing, and here's more money. And we should emphasize that.
On that note, if council wants to go that direction, we can reassess in the summer, and I can see if then we have benchmark. If you want benchmark to do a design for the eastern half, because we have the design specifics for the western half.
Right. But once the money is there, then it's an investment in the total project, so that would make sense. I think the sooner we start, the better.
Yeah.
Get the word out.
Get the word out, start doing it. Do the parks and rec people, are they gonna sell a board or do something like that?
That's not a bad idea. We actually had a really good phone call last week with these two women that have a company in Traverse City, and they specialize in fundraising and in grant writing. And they're just a wealth of information, and they are going to give us a proposal for getting us started. And what their whole approach is to get us set up so we've got kind of the foundation for doing this type of thing in the future. So we can do it in-house after this first effort. So that was really encouraging. We're working on like a little one-page information glossy thing to use in fundraising. We're talking about a community barbecue this summer, and that's probably where we would sell boards. Yep.
Maggie, ladies first, Maggie.
So October, you suggested for us to go out and do a 501c3, which we did. We can now take donations. We are live, and you can do it online up to any amount. So this is ready to go. We are sending out mailers as well as willing to work with the city any way as possible, since it is really, the structure's there for it to be in a turnkey operation to work together on this one. So it's Harbor Springs Boardwalk Preservation.org, and that should be going out to the community this week and in the paper.
That's great. Well done.
Yeah, good.
Well done.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just want to make sure that we're speaking all the same things, that.
Yeah.
So
So everything that's on the website is came from Victor, and so it's the same talk track as what you all are conveying. Definitely want to make sure this is a community effort overall.
Jeff.
Is the city is obviously not a 501c3, so if somebody donates to the city, is the city prepared, or can they send a letter to that donor saying, thank you for your donation of X amount of dollars? It's considered a write-off.
The city can do that. The stipulation for municipalities is that the money has to be used for a public purpose. This is a public purpose. There are some occasions where money donated to the city is not necessarily for a public purpose. For example, there could be a specific project that only benefits one or two or a few households. This would benefit the public. So yes, the city would generate a letter saying thank you for the donation. And we have done that in the past before on multiple things. I don't know, Nick, if you want to speak more to that.
You pretty much covered it. It has to be for a public purpose. So if we were putting in, I don't know, we got donations to put in something for one subdivision. No, then that would be sketchy. But it's open to the public. It's a public access, so it would definitely be covered.
It's just a different write-off. It was not to 501c3. There's a different status for the IRS code for municipalities, but it counts as the same thing for written on.
Well, history defines us. It would be interesting to take a look back. The original boardwalk was called Joshua's Ladder. It went from the bottom of Washington Street to the top. It was one straight line, built by two carpenters, two men, one season, and it was too steep. So that's why it was redesigned. Most people couldn't get from the bottom to the top.
And the
So I
feeling.
don't know what the,
For
what the,
$400.
I don't know what the plan is for the west side only. But if it's a straight line, if you look at history, that's not gonna work real well.
It's going to be essentially the replacement of what we have there. There's a slight modifications, maybe one or two steps different to meet modern day code.
So it actually goes not just up, it goes over.
Yeah, it goes over.
And then over.
Consensus was that a straight up and down would be just as difficult today as it was then.
But not for everybody.
This is not a suggestion for fundraising, but are there consequences now if you use the ladder? If you use the boardwalk?
It is closed.
The reason I ask is I see people using it. And as spring, continues to green up our neighborhoods and that, there's gonna be a lot of foliage that covers that, and a lot more people are gonna use it, which is a lot more liability on the city's part, but you said closed, but people are still using it.
People still do use it, yeah. We have only can put so many barricades and caution tape around it. I'm sure if the police or people see them using it,
Yeah.
they say no, but as far as consequence though, are we handing out tickets for it? No. But we have done, I believe, by putting on the barricades and signs, there are due diligence to cover ourselves in case someone does hurt themselves on the boardwalk.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that Kyle patrol that every day. I think sure he's got enough to do. Okay.
No, yeah, so, but yeah, so, yeah, no.
Our liability insurance, I believe, if I remember how it was written, if we, for instance, if we closed a big raft out there and said swim at your own risk, or just it's closed, and somebody climbed on it and continued to do whatever, if we had it posted, then that becomes misuse of public property, then that falls on them. We would not be liable, but
Well,
we just got to make sure that the signs stay up and it stays barricaded.
people litigate for anything.
That's correct.
So
That is correct.
It's called an attractive nuisance.
I've got just a copy of the grant here and the boardwalk project design is in here. Am I assuming correctly that what we're talking about this was in the grant, but is this we're still sticking to this design, the same one that is in here? There's been no modification from this design that's been presented, correct?
That's correct.
And then my second question is that I heard, I'm just very curious, a few other people have brought it up. On the east side, going forward, are we going to come into any kind of, let's say obstruction? Whether that's an easement or if we would take the east side down, that the residents around there could object, you say they don't want to put back up. Is that a possibility? Is that?
We are not going to remove the east side. The east side is going to stay as is, but we will replace it when we have the money. And I believe we have an easement prescription by right. Jim, you want to clarify?
Yeah, so there is, believe it or not, there's a section of the highway by user statute that covers this kind of situation. So we do have a public right the same way as we do if we have a road. So we have absolute rights to use that area
within the space where it exists. So if we can't move it, if we decide to move it, shift the eastern section of the boardwalk or the western section a few feet up and down, then we might run into trouble. But if we keep it as is, essentially we should be good.
Let's go get some money.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you open, Nick, for taking checks?
What's that?
Are you open for taking checks?
At this moment, sure.
We are too.
All right, some more funding, the American Rescue Plan Act funding. This is ARPA project selection. So this has been funny because Nick and I just received an email too about the changing status of what you can use your ARPA money funds for. Originally, and as we knew it, there's really only a select amount of things you can use the ARPA funding for. One is in response to COVID. So if you need to make changes to, your public infrastructure, your parks or whatever, not sanitation in the bathrooms at City Hall, wherever it may be, you could use the funds for that. Or to address pandemic losses that revenue that you have received. And city is not, it's not lost revenue because of COVID. We just can't make that connection. The other one is you can spend ARPA money on infrastructure, and specifically they called out water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Obviously, broadband is not within our control here, so we really have, we could add broadband, but not for $126,000. So we looked at water and sewer. So we looked at our upcoming water and sewer projects, and I included a whole large packet of information of an inspection of our water tanks. We have 2 water tanks at Kiwanis Park. They're in good condition, but they need to be maintained and upgraded, recoated, some minor fixes here and there. And for each tank, the estimated cost, and one of the tanks was on our CIP, was between $50,000 and $60,000. So we're looking at about $120,000 for the project to do that. So that fits kind of neatly in the $126,000 that we have received. Now, Nick forwarded me an email today saying, well, there's a couple other things you can spend your ARPA money on now, and I'm just going to throw them out there so council knows. it's not gonna change my recommendation. I don't think it'll change Nick's, but one of them is affordable housing projects. I know that's a big topic here and it's something that we could explore, but I don't know what we could do for $126,000. There's property doesn't even, you spend $500,000 on quarter acre of property here, so. So that's out there. The other one is for some sort of public safety improvements to your public safety department. I don't know what, at this point, what, I look at the CIP on other than vehicles. And maybe the no chalking thing, maybe looking at a chalking system, but I don't think that was a great fit, even though I didn't get to talk to you about it yet, because I just got the email from Nick at 4 o'clock. The other one is to increase pay for employees. I don't think that would be appropriate either at this point. So really, I would recommend sticking with a water sewer project. I looked at the CIP with Nick and Lucas and, for other projects, and seems like the best fit for the amount of money it's gonna cost. One caveat there is just to remember is we will see this come out of our general fund because we inserted into our general fund or we deposited into our general fund when we received it, because that was a requirement to put in a general fund. So we will see a transfer out of whenever we do this project of that much money. So it'll look like deficit, but it's a planned deficit because it's money we never, it was, I'm gonna say free money, but it was money from the government anyway. They just require us to put it in the GF. I don't know, Nick, if that's the proper way of explaining it, but.
Yeah, when initially it started, they were all over the board. It was a wide range of just misinformation, and they finally got it narrowed down to infrastructure. But in the meantime, they said, put it in your general fund, which obviously they don't understand governmental accounting. But so yes, it turns out, in my mind, from a dollar standpoint, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. So we have a water and sewer project on some street somewhere that's going to be 300 grand. We earmark this towards that. The year later, we got to turn around and do the water tanks. So I mean, it's not we're not creating any new projects to spend this money on. We're just paying for one that we're gonna have to do anyway. And with these water towers, I mean, obviously it's a big deal. I mean, they're heavily watched and looked at by DEQ and everybody else, Eagle. And it just kind of fits. I have to go in every month as we're doing a project and report who's the contractor, how much, blah, blah, blah. From my standpoint, the reporting would be easy because it's one project. If we say, well, let's put it towards something else, well, that's fine as well, but then we just need to take this money. It just so happens that this quote turns out to be right about the money that we got, and it's something that needs to be done. So I would agree with Victor that this probably makes sense.
Seems like a good use of the funds that we
I
received.
agree. Seems to be perfect.
Saves us 120 grand.
And
Somewhere else.
I did talk to Lucas. He said if we need to get up to $126,000, there is a better, more protective kind of coating that we could get that could get us to, $125,000 to $130,000. So because we need to spend all that $126,000 and we have to count for it. So
Well, knowing that any project that we seemingly have ever done, it's gonna be probably 150 anyway, so.
I don't think that's gonna be a problem.
just in case. Yeah.
And I'll take some extra money if you have.
How old are the tanks?
They were 2003 when they were recoded, or they
I
2000.
don't know how old they are. I think early 2000s is about when they were treated last, but I don't know how long they've been there.
We treated last in 2003 or
I
two.
remember when they built.
20 years.
I know the big tank over in Petoskey, when I was over there, that was $500,000 just to get it painted. But that's a substantially larger tower.
Slightly higher volume, yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, so go, let's do it.
All right, thank you. Finally, last item, this is something that Michael Johnson, Harbor Master, brought up to me when we were discussing parking back in early January, February, but he said that currently the city charges transient voters $5 a day for a daily pass. And that's always been like that since he can remember, since he's been working here. And he recommended to me that I, recommend to you to increase that from $5 a day to $10 a day, because they can park there all day long when normal vehicles can only park there for 4 hours. And part of the reason for the increase would be it's obviously in probably the 20 years we've been charging that $5 a day, it has probably gone up the cost to paint, stripe, maintain the parking lot. This would not affect anyone else. It would only be transient voters who, can rent a slip for a night, 2 or whatnot. Slip holders, seasonal slip holders, they get a parking pass automatically with their slip. Currently, mooring holders don't get a parking pass, something to consider. Even they can't even purchase. Well, I don't know if they can purchase a pass, but I don't think seasonal mooring holders don't get a parking spot with their seasonal mooring. So just something to consider in the future. But right now, I think it makes sense. It's not a drastic increase, but they are taking up space the whole day, and we do need to maintain that parking lot, and the funds would get distributed in the waterfront fund, to balance some of those costs that we have for maintaining the waterfront area, so.
Still very.
I'm glad he brought it up. We should go for it.
Alvin, the parking passes are good for the parking lot, is that correct?
It's just for the harbor master parking lot, not for the
So
street.
how many spots are there before you think about giving people a mooring field? There's 60 mooring moles.
Well.
You can't do it.
No, you can't do it at all.
It's just something that was brought up in conversation, was just something to think about, that, these seasonal holders don't have it, but they also pay, drastically less than a slip holder for moorings.
And we also don't hold parking spaces open for voters. It's first come, first served.
Right.
Even if you have a pass, if there's a civilian that takes in the spot instead of you, that's your problem.
How many transient voters have passes if they're just in for a night or 2?
Well, it's interesting. I talked to Michael and the JV about that, and there's increasingly more people are driving here with their boats and renting a slip and parking their car at Marina parking lot, and then using their boat there, and then driving around, or taking their boat around the bay or to Charlevoix or whatnot. It's increased. It's not a drastic number, but it's definitely increased, they said, in the past couple of
And
days.
then what do they do with their trailer? Put it down here?
Down here.
Or, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that's, I think a lot of locals even do that, I rented a slip down there for a week as a transient and go down after work or on whatever and go do whatever and leave my car there.
Okay.
The other thing that you may not recognize, only because my wife rents cars from Enterprise, but that's one of their biggest rental things in the summer, is delivering cars to parking spots here, Petoskey and Charlevoix, for boaters that come in, so they have a car, and then they can stick their pass on it, and when they're done, they take the pass off.
Okay.
And it's something you don't see, but it's there.
Okay.
Interesting.
I have a quick question and related to this that maybe you might have the answer to. On our street at 2nd Street, there's some city property that's on there, not just on the corner, but more towards the middle. And there's some VRBOs there, and typically there will be particularly one house, which can have 2 families in it, will have 2 power boats that they'll put in the water and then take them out, and then they park them back there on the city across from their house, and not in the city lot like what people who live here locally do. Is that legal to park that just right there on the street? I'm just saying, before you know, then the precedents would be VRBO people.
Off the top of my head, I don't know. It's a good question for Jeff Graham, zoning administrator. He knows more about what can be stored on properties.
Well, we have asked them, the people who own the home are friendly with them, and they have just said it's city property, they're allowed to do it, and we just kind of left it alone. I thought, well, then what's the point? When people can just put their jet skis. I
Doesn't
guess,
seem
on
like
city
that
property.
would follow, because we had the same problem down here with the resorts filling this field with their boats.
Right.
And we took control of it, shut it down.
If they're using city property, obviously, they shouldn't be doing that.
Right. Well, this is city property in a neighborhood strictly.
So if you do notice that, just call us.
It's the north side of 2nd Street,
Yeah.
right by and they park there in the winter as well.
Where we plow the snow, where we bank up all the snow. And Jeff is aware of this. He's had calls just recently, actually.
So
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we increase the transient voter fee by $5.
I'll second that.
Nancy Roundell.
Yes.
John Leo.
Yes.
Al Lika.
Yes.
Matt Rivera.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Report really quickly, all the public bathrooms are now open. The harbor master building, the repairs are done there. There was the damaged carpet from the sewer spill, sewer leak, I should say, and some other minor damage, baseboards and et cetera, but that's all good now. Harbor master building is open. We did receive a $10,000 donation from the Rotary Club of Petoskey for the skate park. As a plug, Arbor Day Fest is being held on May 28th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're advertising for that on social media and Harbor Light. That is essentially paid for by sponsors. We have Johansson's Tree Service. We also have Hoffman's, as well as the IGA, or now the Harbor Springs Market, was donated some food, and we have our volunteers and tree board that have been putting tireless hours into it. So thank you for that, making an event possible. We did also have as I'm not on here, but Kate Tuttle from Relief, I mentioned it in the meetings part of the city manager's report, but she came here and inspected the trees that we planted last year for Arbor Day that the Relief grant paid for, and half of it at least, so about 15 trees we planted on the spillway. She gave a little health check status on those, saying all the trees are looking good so far. We do have irrigation there, so that's good. That means we're more likely to get potentially money in the future if we keep up our trees, so.
Back years ago, we used to plant trees at the Pepper Street well site on Arbor Day. We do a little celebration down there. That's why some of those giant pines are there now. They were in case we couldn't procure a Christmas tree, cut it down from that lot. We're kind of looking into the future for that.
No, that's actually been brought up before. I talked to Ben Vealing, arborist, about that before, and he said one of the problems there is that there wasn't really good maintenance of those trees that were planted there. We kind of just were left, and they were never really maintained. A lot of the trees are not in good shape, but he had offered that idea again, if we wanted to just have people, instead of just when we get a donation planting a tree, use that as a place to plant trees and hold them for at least a couple of years. We've kind of talked about that. I don't know if we mentioned it at the tree board or not, but I know I've talked about it with Ben before. It's been brought up. It's something to think about. I think it's a good idea, as long as we can actually spend time maintaining those trees and watering them properly and et cetera, and pruning them.
And if the trees that are there are not pretty, maybe we should cut them out of there and put some trees in that have a chance.
It's a good idea. No, it's logistically speaking, it's just figuring that out. But yeah, it's a good idea. We've talked about it.
I think a lot of those pine trees up at Peffer now are getting like the ones up by Bay Bluffs where their time span is just about done and they're certain to self-prune. But I think that's a great idea about planting our own Christmas trees for future generations.
You thought it was a good idea then.
And finally, there was a few meetings, the DDA on May 11th, they had a public information meeting. Parks Board and Harbor Commission held a joint meeting on May 11th, shared ideas on waterfront parks. There was 15 people around this table, so it was good for the two boards to come together. And the Harbor Commission met right after that to talk about the harbor plan goals. So we're gonna be sending out some surveys on the harbor plan goals and objectives in the next couple of months. June and July, we'll probably also have one or two public information or public meetings for people to voice their opinions on the goals and make any recommendations. And then we're still hoping for an October harbor plan completion to have it in front of council by November, but that can change depending on how the summer goes. And again, a few meetings, I met with the incoming school superintendent, who's replacing Michael in a couple months here. I mentioned Kate Tuttle, a couple MPPA meetings, motion dismissed hearing on the Potter lawsuit in Petoskey, and then a business risk model MPPA meeting. And that is all I have.
Nothing.
Today.
Meeting adjourned. Oh. Guys,
We're unlocking the restrooms, all three of them, 6:30, 7 in the morning, they'll be locked 8 to 9 at night. So if anybody asks, all three of them are open, from 6:30 to 7, we unlock them. If you have an issue, just give me a call if they're not locked.
gotcha. Thank you. We're off the topic. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks for having us.